On today's DomainSherpa review, top brokers Andrew Rosener and Jeff Gabriel discuss domains recently bought or sold, different approaches to relationships in the broker-client relationship, and also we discuss the financial markets right now and how specifically to approach a domain sale and to structure it for Q4 2020. Enjoy the show. Hey, Sherpa Network. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Tess Diaz, executive producer of DomainSherpa.com, and this is the DomainSherpa Review. This is a show where we get into the minds of successful domain name investors using real examples so we can learn strategies and tactics to become better investors ourselves. We have 3 segments to the review. We'll start off learning what the Sherpas recently bought or sold. Next, we'll preview some domains going to auction soon at NameJet.com. And for the third section, we will be discussing a little bit about the financial markets and some interesting conversation. So joining us today, we have 2 past Sherpas and industry thought leaders, Jeff Gabriel of Saw.com. Hi, Jeff. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good to hear. And Andrew Rosener of Media Options. Hello, Drew.
Hello.
You guys are brief today.
I know, right?
Let's get So actually, they're all out of words from all our pregame conversations.
Which was not public appropriate.
Yeah.
Part 1, what's new Sherpas? So one purchase or sale you've made over the past few weeks, and we want to learn what you've paid or received for the domain, why you thought it was a good deal, and how the negotiations progressed. So, Jeff, you are up first. No pricing. What's a name you recently bought or sold?
A name that we recently sold. Now, this one was under some, we were discussing this for a little while, and it's kind of one that is just a really specific name. So it's called esiact.com.
Wow, that is officially the most difficult name for the radio test.
It's spelled ESSIACTEA.com. Esiact.
Esiact.
Okay.
I feel like I'm at a tremendous disadvantage here since I have no clue what that does. It could be a $1 billion industry, or it could be 4 people on the earth that drink Esiact.
Very interesting. Okay, esiact.com. What we do know is that Drew has certainly taught me about the value of tea online. And we also know there is 0 way that passes the radio test. So, interesting one. And this was an acquisition or a sale?
This was a sale.
A sale. So an outbound sale. Like you literally had to call multiple people and say, would you like to buy Esiact?
We sold it.
Okay. Going in blind, Drew. What do you think?
I'm gonna say Esiact.
This isn't a world record here, guys. This isn't this amazing, unbelievable sale.
Esiact. I mean, I'm gonna go out on a limb. My gut instinct is to say like 25, but I'm gonna go out on a limb and say like 48.
Okay.
Cass, I think you should guess since we don't have any other guests today.
Well, Jeff, I wish you hadn't given your little hint of it isn't a world record. I think generally Saw.com does an outbound broker names of super low value. I wonder if there was only one buyer. I know that for Media Options, sometimes if there's a specific buyer, maybe you bought a domain for a different purpose, and then a company develops with that same unique name. Maybe there's some outreach. Esiact.com. I'm going to go low, even though I don't know why you're bringing it up. That I'm missing the psychology for this.
I want to talk about more of a unique name because, I mean, we have another name we sold that's like, you know, it's we sold for the mid 6 figures, and I think that'd be easy to talk about. But I have this obscure one out of left field. I thought it'd be more interesting to discuss.
Okay, I'm going to say $15,000.
You actually nailed it right on the nose.
Boom! Nailed it!
That's more often. So it was one of those, we tried a couple places. This is a tea you drink if you supposedly have cancer and it helps cure it, but there's absolutely zero proof that it does anything for anybody. Yeah. So I found it to be, and if you look at spiced tea, I think that's owned by the NameFind portfolio, and you look at some of the other sales that have occurred, like organic tea and stuff have sold for around that price or less. And it's like, wow, so I thought that was just a good sale. And it was a unique one because we don't usually sell names like this on a regular basis or even entertain trying to sell them. It's not really that interesting to us, but I thought you guys would find that one to be interesting.
SCAC tea.
So even though it doesn't pass the radio test, people who have cancer and are really motivated looking at alternative, unproven, probably don't work treatments, they're going to know this word. They're going to know how to spell it. There's probably some good search volume. So what made you agree to take it on, and how many buyers did you approach?
This is what we do as a company, is that when we take on what we do is represent typically an entire portfolio. So we don't just, people will come to us and say, we have, 500, we own 500 names. Which one do you want to take on? And that's not really the strategy that we take. So what we would say is we'd want to work with you on all 500 of your names, and then put our for sale landers on those. And then as opportunities come in, or we see names that pique our interest that are priced at a reasonable amount, then we're going to do some outbound on those particular names, right? So like if Media Options was a name as part of Drew's portfolio, and we said, wait, there's a lot of different media companies out there that, perhaps would be willing to spend the hundreds of millions of dollars that domain is worth, we would then do some basic, outbound campaigning and working on that. And let's say he has like a few super gems that are really nice, and we would do like press releases and additional. So this isn't one of those that commanded, the whole marching band and everything to do, but it was worth doing some work, to get the word out and to let people know, and somebody nibbled. Now, there's a lot of different other names that were in this portfolio that we were doing a lot of other outbound for as well, to add that extra value, rather than just, kind of sitting there and waiting on all the names, which we do sit and wait on a good number of names as well, but there's others that seem like it's a competitive spot. So like the idea would be Drew gets an inquiry on one of his names, or we get an inquiry on their name. First thing you do, what everyone does, is they Google it. So if you see that there's a lot of different companies offering this product or service, or it's a brandable or named that, then it would behoove you to then start to go and say, hey, are you interested? Hey, are you interested? Hey, are you interested?
Yeah.
Because now you've come across something of value, right? Rather than just working with that buyer and potentially selling short, right?
I have also actually recently sort of, like I said, changed my tune, but I'm beginning to change my tune across, that sort of mindset. We have a different strategy, as you know, but like I'm willing to take on some smaller names when I think that they're interesting, or it's an interesting area, because I think like, Chris and I talk all the time about advertising, and I just don't find advertising to be a very effective channel for a domain broker, because like as a domain broker, I guess if you break it down, your job is like, 90% timing, 10%, work, right? It's like, you gotta get the right name in front of the right person at the right time. And then, the price matters, but it's less important than the timing. And so I feel like the type of marketing that's actually effective is getting, layups or smaller names, even if it's like, all right, normally I'm not thinking about this in terms of the commission is worth my time, but it's putting us in contact with more companies, especially if it's in an industry we want exposure in. And, it's just more conversations leads to more deals, period. In any type of sales, right? So more conversation, more sales. So yeah, I can look at it a little bit like marketing on some of these smaller names. It's like, it's just good marketing. Just getting you out there, putting your stake in the ground.
I also think me as a salesperson, personally, I like to have things going on. and happening.
Yeah.
You know, if I did one sale a year and made the same amount of money if I did 100.
No, I'm sorry, that's the position you're in, man.
Yeah, right.
I wish I could help.
Yeah, but I'd rather be doing like averaging 8 or 10 deals a month personally than doing 2 deals a year or 5, because it just keeps you rocking and rolling, and like, you know, you're feeling good even if you do 10.
You gotta stay in a rhythm. It's all about staying in a rhythm.
I mean, I respect the rocking and rolling and the rhythm, but on top of that, it's the almost the muscle memory, the practicing of overcoming objections, hearing what's on the current market type, you know, like Google makes some tiny change, there are all these new different objections, or maybe the political landscape is in turmoil and therefore there's some really interesting financial changes across the country. You know, you want to know what's happening each moment. So good for you. That's pretty cool. What was your asking price on it and why?
The asking price, I believe, was about $25,000 or $30,000, if I can remember off the top of my head. And it's just one of those names. Like when I worked at Uniregistry for Frank Schilling, it's like you kind of just put some names into particular buckets, and you just want to put a price on it. And whether it's worth a little less or a little bit more, you kind of just stick with that number so it doesn't blow away the buyer that you're inquiring with. At the same time, it doesn't sell it short, right? So it leaves a little bit of breathing room in there for the negotiation.
Nice. Good for you. All right. Congrats. SEXT. Don't buy it. Go see a doctor.
Well, I mean, my attitude would be if I was diagnosed with cancer and I saw this tea online that might help cure it, I mean, even going through all the other stuff that unfortunately people have to go through, I mean, I'd probably be drinking a gallon of that a day, even if there's a 1/1000% chance it's going to cure it, right? So yeah. I'd be doing anything, you know, like jumping in a circle into if someone told me that works, right? So, or whatever.
Yeah. It makes sense. Good point. Drew, what'd you buy or sell lately?
Hold on. I had one and I actually just forgot. Hold on. What was it? Okay. I'll talk about a sale. It was a name we owned, and it just sold. It sold via GoDaddy. No, actually, it sold via Uniregistry. I think it sold via Afternic via the new Uniregistry integration. And it was interesting because I didn't necessarily know that I had this domain priced. I had priced an inquiry that came in through the Uniregistry marketplace 5 years ago. Somehow that got stuck as a buy it now price. And so somebody came along and clicked buy it now in Afternic, and the name sold. And the name is Rosso.com, R-O-S-O, Rosso.com.
So an Italian restaurant or Italian company bought it?
I don't know. I don't know if there's anything on it actually yet. Let's see.
Okay, so we have a CV, easy to say.
It's still forwarding to.
Yeah, they haven't updated.
Nope.
But Jeff, you're not allowed to look at anything. Quick, hurry.
It has to be an uninformed decision.
ROSO. I would probably say the buy it now. I'd probably say like $22,000 from 5 years ago. $32,000.
This game is hard when there's only one participant.
What did you say?
It's more like ping pong if there's only one participant.
Yeah.
So it was 38,
all right.
which I thought was light, to be honest. I don't hate that sale, but ROSO, repeating vowel, very pronounceable, nice little brand. I don't know that there's anybody in that space, and so it's kind of a clean slate.
I would think so, but I mean, with that pronunciation, you usually have a double S, so like Rosso or Rossi, or like, something like that. I mean, I think it's a good name. I wonder if it has a meaning. Does it have any meaning in Spanish, phonetically or anything?
No, it's like some, it's like a weird alternative form, of the word red or pink or something else in like a variety of different languages. But like, it's not like a primary form. It's like some,
Yeah, it's not going to be used as a color, but it connotes a color. It has, the repeating vowel. You're right, ROSSO may be a misspell. It sounds like a restaurant, a brand for just about anything. What would you price it for today, Drew, if you were...
not a ton more. I probably would have put it with a 75,000 ask and a 50,000 floor. If I did it again, but it's okay. I think four-letter.coms are just like the holy grail. I think that, they're really the gold standard when it comes to brands. And so, I don't know. It's getting harder and harder to find a four-letter pronounceable, whether it's a word or not. It's a good, clean four-letter.com that's easy to pronounce. That just feels very cheap to me. But, that doesn't mean the market's there, but it just feels cheap to me. When I see what these things can go for when somebody comes and wants it, I think that's cheap. But, I'm also not, real upset with that sale.
I wouldn't be either. And I think you'd be upset if you price it a lot less a long time ago and you're going to say, well, what the hell? I didn't agree to that price, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that domains have only risen in, so basically what you're saying is a $12,000 difference, 38 to 50 floor, right? Do you think that you just randomly priced it really high 5 years ago? Do you think that's an accurate?
Well, to be fair, I had a $25,000 floor, and they came in originally, I think there was like a lower offer that was near the floor, and I was like, no, that ain't happening. And I didn't realize there was a bid price.
So you would have taken 25 and I said 22. So I did pretty good there. All right.
Well, no. 25 was the floor I had set 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So my point was to Tessa's comment that even though she's saying it's only a $12,000 difference, actually, if we're comparing floor to floor, because I was saying I think I would have had a 75 ask and a 50 floor if I was doing it today. And at that point, I had, let's say, a 50 ask and a 25 floor. So, we probably added somewhere between 30 to 50% in value in that period of time, if I had to guess. Broad stroke, high-end names.
I said 5 years ago, when you said I priced it 5 years ago, I immediately thought cheaper.
Yeah. That's, enough said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Enough said.
Agreed. All right. This was the quickest part one Sherpas ever. Congrats on each of your sales. Let's take a moment. We'll hear from our advertisers for today's show who support us in our mission to educate folks in the domain industry. Media Options is the industry-leading domain broker specializing in domain acquisitions, high-value domain sales, and domain name consultation. As pioneers and thought leaders on the subject of the domain aftermarket and domain name value, plus through their clear domain acquisition service, Media Options offers startups and established corporations an unparalleled scope of high-value domain options, providing access to domain names and curation technologies not available elsewhere. Media Options believes in the power of a great domain name and is dedicated to helping you obtain yours. Call or email today to put a domain to work for you. So it's time for our marketplace list. This segment is sponsored by NameJet. We're reviewing domains heading to auction soon. If you like one of the names below, you do need to click through because once they go to auction, you're not able to either bid anymore or even just to watch what's going on. So let's get started. For transparency, you guys don't own nor are you brokering any of the names on the list, correct?
Negative.
Okay, Drew, you're up first. What are your thoughts?
I don't love any of these names, I have to say. I think homeparty.com is the one that really pops out at me as like, that's a great name. It's timely. I think it could be like a killer app. Somebody's got to figure out how to do a better Zoom party. So I think homeparty.com is a cool name that's timely, and it's the right form, and it's the right words, and it's the right combo. I like it. I like it better than, house parties. Also, obviously, kind of more the term, but for whatever reason, I like home party almost a little better. I don't know. I guess maybe not, but I like it. I like the name. Search engine ranking is kind of like, the most valuable in terms of just a generic value. But I also know that we've tried to sell search engine optimization.com and SEO.net. I think we're still selling SEO.net. Very hard to sell. The people in the industry, believe that they can rank any domain, and they don't put. It's a strange thing. The agencies are very different than the people that are actually really good at SEO, in my experience. And so it's a tough name, I think, to sell. But you never know. Somebody comes along, might hit the bid. I also really like doubleyourmoney.com, but the thing is like, it's one of those things that's false friend probably, because in the end it's like easy money,
kind of slimy,
generally a bit slimy.
I was waiting for both of you to knock double your money to be like, in the domain industry, that isn't a big enough return.
Yeah. That sales guy, what is his name? I think his name is like Grant Cardone, where everything's 10x. It just kind of makes me feel
10x.
10x, no good.
You go into it knowing there's like some grease there. It's like,
yeah. That at least where I live now, when I moved back from Cayman and I would go on YouTube, now I get all the guys driving in their cars, like kind of like Don Lapre telling me how to double my money with search engine advertising and all kinds of other things like that. And that definitely be like one of the websites that they would point you to, is these schemes that are constantly on YouTube with this guy just using like his VHS camera from the 80s for his advertising. So
I mean, at the end of the day though, it's like,
a great sales book. It's a good brand. I mean, people like that stuff. People fall for it. So I think it's a good name.
What I call stupid, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of name that would be used for like there are certain industries where there can be some great names, but nobody will pay a lot because everyone in that industry just spams and then throws away the domain once they're done, or spams or does gets blacklisted in Google or whatever.
Yeah, I probably, if you do your homework, there's probably a high probability that thing has some hair on it.
I'm sure it does.
But
probably like 3 times over now too.
Yeah,
I have never heard that saying, but now I kind of want to see it like in a logo of double your money with some creepy.
I feel like it should be like the marketing domain from like the United States Federal Reserve. Double your money.
Okay. So searchengineranking.com, what is there a price you would actually put on that you would recommend?
It's one of those tricky things. It's like, if you go by the numbers, which is what I preach, then, that's a $50,000 to $75,000 domain. I will not tell you that I think you could sell that for $50,000 to $75,000 though. I think that, you probably find a buyer pretty easy for 10 grand. But you're going to still work, it's not like a layup probably, but it probably somewhere in the 10 to 25 range is like full value of what I think it realistically could sell for. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think, I think again, it's going to look better on paper than it is if you go out to market with it.
Got it. Okay. Thanks. Jeff, what do you think?
Home Party though, it's like, I like that name because it's like, I bet you get homeparty.com for under $1,000. And it's like, I'll probably bid on it. And, I bet, when and if it does sell, it's 25 or 50.
I think, yeah. I've been looking at these while Drew's been talking, and he's hit pretty much all the ones that I wanted to talk about. With search engine ranking, I mean, I haven't had the experience of trying to sell a specific SEO style of domain, but Drew definitely will agree to this, is that he's certainly tried to sell domains to people in the SEO industry who represent their clients. And the way I look at it is, in a lot of the cases, is that they don't want to spend too much on the domain because it eats away from their budget.
100%.
Right?
100%.
But the thing is that I've said to people who do SEO, and when I'm talking to them and they're objecting to spending, and their attitude is, well, I could register any name and get it to the top of the rankings. And I'm like, you're right, you can. But the reality is that the person who's going to click on that service isn't loyal to your company, and they're going to look at the others and look for them as well. So you need a domain name to help legitimize your business rather than just SEOing anything to the top. And SEO is an extremely competitive business. It is an extremely questionable business. There's a lot of questionable domain brokers out there, but you don't necessarily know I could spend $100,000 with an SEO company and they could either get my domain name banned, they could just keep the money and really don't do anything. They don't really know what they're doing. They can try things that don't work and they just haven't, and you're their guinea pig. Like, you just don't know. But I do think they still need a decent domain. But is it going to get you, $100K from them? No. Selling it, like Drew said, 10, 15, 20 grand. Yeah. So buying it at a NameJet auction for $1,500, I think is a good investment. I generally do. I wouldn't get up to like 4 or 5 on it, but $1,000, a little bit around that. Sure. I'd buy that. Double your money. As a salesperson, I don't like gimmicks personally. Right. And I was telling you guys before that our family's moving. I was calling moving companies. And they would be like on the phone with me and they'd say, I have a deal from you today, only today, but you have to give me your deposit now. And then they'd be like, are you a AAA member? Oh, wow, I'm going to give you an even bigger discount. Hold on. Let me see if I can do even better. I'm going to go talk to my manager. And I'm just like sitting here at my desk, like, come on. This is like the weakest sales pitch I've ever heard. And I'm just like, can you just send me the quote in writing? And they're like, oh, we can't till you pay the $200 deposit. Like, it's just these scams, right? So like, double your money. If people want to do the Don Lapre or any of these other sales books that are going to make you $1 million overnight, yeah, there's value there. That's a huge, I'm sure, $1 billion industry. So that's a great name. Drew's right with Home Party. I guess, I crossed that threshold into 40 this year, so I'm not really feeling the Home Party. I'm more of like the 3 of us, maybe our wives or significant others, and we have some drinks and some fun talking, but like 30 people in a Zoom room, all talking at each other is weird. Yeah. I find it really strange. And I'm not really that into it. But yeah, I could see the value there. Another good name is Feed Me. I think that's a really good name. And I think, I don't know if you guys saw the class action lawsuit that is against Grubhub right now. Apparently they signed up hundreds of thousands of restaurants that didn't want to sign up. And what they did is that they told the delivery people not to tell them that they worked for Grubhub. And so they were taking inaccurate menus people were ordering off of. These people would pick up food and it wasn't the right order, bring it to the house after they marked it up 30%. The orders were wrong. People were calling the restaurants and saying, my order's wrong and it's fucked up or whatever. And they're like, who are you? You don't even know who you are.
They're going to get hosed too because they were out of line. They
ruined the reputation of how many local businesses?
Thousands of restaurants.
Local restaurants. Oh, they're going to get smashed.
They're going to get hosed.
So a good ethical group of deliverers or something like that, Feed Me, or even, I'm noticing there's a lot of the businesses that give all their profits to charity, so they're not necessarily going to use a .org, but good feedme.org, feedme.com will be good. Or another kind of business thing, give me deals or something like that. I think that could be used for a ton of great ideas. I really like that name a lot. It's an action one. I think that's pretty good too. So I just reading white meat. I mean, we know what white meat is. It's pork.
I was leaving white meat for you. I knew you were going to like that one.
Yeah, we'll make it a dating site, right? So you have you have one for African Americans. You have one for those who are Jewish. You have all different kinds. I mean, I guess it's that Christian singles. Maybe it might be it. I don't know. But that could be the Grindr site for that.
I never know what I am going to learn on DomainSherpa.
Well, that's a little edgy, but I mean, what else, or you could sell pork on it, but I think that's too limiting. And right now we're selling dinner and takeout, and we've gotten a lot of good offers on the names. But I think
you're selling dinner.com and takeout.com.
Yeah, we're representing those. Brooke Hernandez is working the most on those. So if you have someone who's interested in that, or you are, you can go to brooke@saw.com. She'd be love to talk to you about them. But yeah, I think white meat are good. It's good. You know, it's one of the most consumed meats, at least in the United States and all over the world. So having that is not a bad name either, right? So
yeah,
just don't think
certainly
it's
unforgettable. What about?
I think Tyson should use that. I mean, talk about any press is good press, right? So Tyson goes out and runs a campaign on whitemeat.com, like. It's going to be controversial, but you're going to take an otherwise irrelevant brand and make it put in everybody's.
He lives here. Like I've bumped into him twice at the mall and at
Ross Perot?
Spaghetti sauce in the grocery store.
Ross Perot died.
What?
Ross Perot died.
What was his? No, he was Purdue Chicken.
Purdue, yeah, the old guy, the Purdue guy.
Purdue.
Yeah.
Who's Tyson?
Tyson Chicken was just bought by a Chinese company. They're one of the biggest producers of chicken in the world. You don't know Tyson Chicken? You've never heard of them?
No, of course I know Tyson. I'm saying who's the owner?
Oh, I think it's a publicly traded company now. But you're thinking of the Purdue guy, right? Tess?
Me? I thought you were talking about Mike Tyson.
Oh, Mike Tyson. He lives in Arizona.
Oh, Mike Tyson. No, I'm talking about Tyson Chicken.
Yeah, I don't think Mike Tyson
Mike Tyson owning whitemeat.com would be hilarious. And everything that you said made sense.
Oh my God. Tess just took this in an entirely new direction.
I thought my dating idea was bad.
Wait a minute. Do you guys know what, Jeff, how old's your oldest kid?
7.
Okay, yeah, no. Let me tell you some things.
No.
So, Ragu had this commercial that was all the rage 10 years ago, but they don't put it on TV. It's their YouTube and different stuff like that. And the one 10 years ago was about walking in. It's a teenage boy walks in on mom and dad in the bedroom.
Oh.
And it's some days you just need comfort, and they're eating Ragu.
Wow.
And then just a couple weeks ago, Kraft Macaroni and Cheese had a whole campaign, send nudes, but nudes like noodles. And it was all the teenagers knew about it. And I'm like, this is nowhere. I even kind of tried to Google it a little bit at first on purpose, in ways I
feel like that's a slight. That much of that makes me comfortable. Kraft.
I know it doesn't make me comfortable either.
In the midst of a pedophilia scandal left and right.
No kidding. Yep. But that's I mean, I don't know why these brands are so into targeting teenagers.
Well, that's the next step. They got to keep that Kraft Mac and
cheese. They grow up into be, people.
Yeah, no, I get it. But with the end of my sentence was with sex,
Kraft is the same company that owns Philip Morris. Maybe they'll get them to buy a pack of smokes after they have sex. They have the Kraft cheese, they have sex, and they have a cigarette.
Full life cycle. Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, okay. We didn't talk about solar panel kits. What's going on in the solar world? I mean, that was all the rage for a minute. And then Sky Bank, it sounds like a legit bank. Even if it's not a legit bank, it sounds like one. And if it is a legit bank, there's probably 12 legit banks.
What's a solar panel kit?
But if it is a legit bank, it's a trademark problem. And,
even if there are 12 banks with that name?
Yeah, problem. What's your argument? Somebody files UDRP against you. So I always look at it all right, sure, maybe there's 12 companies that own that have that name. I don't know. But even if there are, if somebody files UDRP against you, how are you going to defend yourself on Skybank? You bought that domain to sell it to who?
Excellent.
What were you? Do you have a banking license? What was your intention? Were you planning on tokenizing the sky and putting in?
Maybe you want to put seeds up in the clouds in case something happens, and you have a solar powered thing that you're going to put up there to do it.
Wow, Jeff, you should have been an attorney. Okay, what about solar panel kits?
What is a solar panel kit?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'll sell it
online to power a light bulb. What are you going to do? I don't know. I don't like that. I just don't like it.
Do you like
How many people are installing their own solar panels? You know what I mean? Like that's a niche market.
Pass.
People are calling Solar City and they're coming and having it installed.
Yep, exactly.
I think you guys answer all the questions. Good job. I don't want to see whatever happens with whitemeat.com.
I think he's going to buy it. That's what's going to happen to it.
All right. I'm super excited about our third segment. Let's take a moment to hear from our sponsors who support us in our educational mission.
FD was built by domain investors to increase your inquiries, sales, and profit. Forget spreadsheets and archived emails. Manage your entire investment portfolio in one place using a secure and completely confidential platform. Learn more at FT.com. That's EFTY, FT.com.
So our third section here, generally we try to look at some type of market trend. Jeff, Gabriel, you had a really interesting topic for discussion. Why don't you tell us your story?
All right. So anybody who's listening right now, today is election day. Now, we're not going to get into a political discussion about what's going to happen or who we want to win or anything like that. But a colleague of mine told me, so he owns his own financial planning firm. He went to a webinar with the, I believe, one of the top or the CEO of Raymond James and another presenter, another very high up person or CEO, whoever, at BlackRock. And what they said is during a typical election year, since after the Depression, adjusted for inflation, Americans keep on average $150 billion on top of their normal amounts of money in money market accounts leading up to elections.
So they squirrel away some extra cash.
Yeah, they like sell stocks or bonds or other things and get themselves liquid in some way, shape, or form and put it into a money market account beyond what their standard amount of cash is. So in the United States, the average amount is, before an election, is $150 billion. So,
and that's really cool. Adjusted for inflation every election since the Depression. Okay.
Correct. And so I was playing guess with Drew before the video, and then we decided to turn it into a discussion because I never got to the question, so let's add it into the show. So the amount leading up to this election that has been squirreled away or has been liquidated from stocks and things like that is $750 billion. More than just the average. So you're about 5 times higher than the average, right? Now, my question to both of you is, it's 2 parts. The first part is what do you think is going to happen to the stock market? Let's pretend that the president isn't really going to have a lot to do with it because people are going to be have been sitting on a lot of money. So we're going to see it go down or we're going to go up or whatever direction it's going to go, but then it's going to kind of go back to normal because short term, a new or staying president can't really do much. So people are do you think they're going to keep it on the sidelines and they're going to invest it back in? And what does that do to the value of domains in the short and long term? And then also, what do you think is going to happen with the value of Bitcoin when there's $750 billion, or people aren't thinking about keeping their money sheltered in Bitcoin because the election has passed and now they're going to potentially sell out of it? Do you think there's going to be a dip, I guess like a price of gold? So it's a long question, so we can do it in different parts. So with the $750 billion, Drew, what do you think is going to happen to it 3 or 4 days from now or in the next 2 weeks? Let's just start there. What do you think is going to happen to that money?
So here's what's going to happen. If Trump wins, stock market, financial assets skyrocket. We basically just continuation of the bull cycle that we've been in, but in connection with that, real hard productive assets also increase. And I think you're looking at significant appreciation, 20, 30% annual appreciation for the next, 4 or 5 years. Which you can call that appreciation or you can call that inflation. It depends on your perspective. I would call it inflation, because I don't think that any of those assets are becoming more productive. So you're only driving up their already irrational values. And so it's really inflation. So it's an inflation against people holding that cash. And then if Biden wins, same thing on financial markets, maybe to a lesser extent because there's a tax hedge. But I think we see a continuation. Let's say, I don't know, maybe there's a 15 to 25% difference between those things. Could be higher. Could be significantly higher. I could see a complete and utter insanity in a Trump victory of financial assets just going nuts. Long treasuries going, like serious.
What do you think happens if Biden win? I mean, if Trump.
I think Trump wins. Democrats win the Senate.
House and the Senate. What happens if Democrats win the House and the Senate?
Yeah, so if that happens, Trump wins presidency, Democrats take the House and the Senate. I think that's the worst of the outcomes from a financial markets perspective.
Well, they're not going to let anything. They're not going to let
nothing go through.
They can just handcuff them. It's 4 years of nothing.
But no matter what, irrelevant of who wins, what's far more important is central bank policy. And so there is unanimous, I think across the aisle, I think a lot of this debate and fighting over this package pre-election is politics. But there is unanimous support for massive stimulus universally. I mean, you're going to see some stuff that is unprecedented. I think that we are potentially looking at, literally an order of magnitude increase in the Federal Reserve balance sheet, and that is horrifying to me. And so I think that is going to happen regardless of whether Trump wins or Biden wins. I think that happens. The only difference is going to be where it flows to. And so I think that Bitcoin is the absolute ultimate hedge against Federal Reserve asset balance sheet inflation. And so I think if there's a single correlation in the world that Bitcoin is actually hinged to, I do not think that it's stock markets. I think those are short-term correlations to the stock markets, because when there's a risk-off event, correlation goes to 1, all assets sell off because it's just a general psychological risk-off. So I think people are foolish to say, oh, but look, markets go down, Bitcoin goes down. Sure, in the short term. But I think you're already starting to see Bitcoin decouple from the stock market. And I think that there will be a continuance of that. I think that, again, the most meaningful point I think I'm making is that no matter what, Federal Reserve inflating its balance sheet, no matter what, whether that's doubling or 10xing, Federal Reserve balance sheet increasing. There's going to be massive amounts of stimulus in varying forms. We might even see some form of weird version of universal basic income. But almost definitely everybody's going to have a direct account with the Federal Reserve, and they're going to be able to put money in your account. It's push of a button, and you're going to see some crazy things happen. And that only supports the price of Bitcoin because, and gold, I think that if you have an appetite for speculation, stock market's going to do well. You have you don't feel real good about where valuations are at. You don't feel real good about the world right now. I look at it and I go, I'd like to own big gold and Bitcoin. That's my take.
So do you think when, so right now, one of the salespeople messaged me today and said, one of the buyers I was talking to has zero interest in talking to me today. They said they just want to watch the election. They'll call me in a few days. Do you think companies are going to be more open to buying domain names and getting them into their fourth quarter purchasing plans after this election, or do you think it's going to tighten up depending on the outcome? Do you think if Trump's elected?
I think it depends on the outcome. Right? I mean, just being unbiased, apolitical about it. It's like, all right, Biden wins, corporate taxes going up 20% minimum.
But he can't make a tax plan. He can't make a tax plan by the
no, not tomorrow. It's not happening tomorrow. It might happen
3 years.
2 years. Yeah, it might happen 2 years from now. But it doesn't matter. The moment people expect it, it gets priced into the market. That's in stock prices as well as budget decisions. So I think that yes, it will have. Depending on the outcome, it will have some impact. But the truth is, it's going to it's very, 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 very quickly going to start making sense to every corporate treasurer in the world. It does not make a lot of sense, especially when we start seeing stock markets fly even further. We start seeing real estate, quality real estate. In demand, scarce real estate increasing at crazy rates. When we start seeing anything that anybody wants to buy, not the price of your bread and the price of your orange juice, but assets. When you start seeing asset prices skyrocket, when suddenly, that Bitcoin that you thought was expensive at $13,000 is suddenly $60,000. When the bond that you thought you could buy that would pay you $50,000 a year in passive zero risk income from the United States government, when that goes from being, I don't even know. I think you need like $10 million to generate 50 grand in passive income right now. It'll very, 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 very soon be, instead of 10 million, it'll be 15 million, and then it'll be 20, 25, and then there'll be no yield in government bonds. So, in fact, there'll be a negative yield. So, there already is a real negative yield because of inflation. So, I don't know. I think, at the end of the day, more money comes out of budgets, more money comes out of corporate treasuries as capital asset acquisitions across the board, and domain names are going to benefit from that, especially with all of the other compounding factors. That's my take.
Okay.
There's going to loose monetary policy is good for assets, right? It's good for asset prices. So, I think unless there's any reason on the horizon that domains suddenly become less important, I would argue that there's lots of things on the horizon that are going to make domains more important. But if there was something on the horizon that was going to make domains less important, then sure, I'd handicap it. But I think that no matter who wins, we're going to see a lot of loose monetary policy. And I think that it's going to cause absolute mayhem, massive underlying social problems. But, financially, it's going to drive financial assets, and it's going to flow into corporations, and then corporations aren't going to want to sit on cash, and they're going to buy more productive assets, and that includes domains.
But I've seen some charts, some employee charts from a major investment firm that show every election has this cycle, no matter how high or low, it's the same cycle. And even though, it's averaged out to 150 and this is astronomically higher, I think in general, the human behavior is pretty likely to be the same. What concerns me is more psychological, about the fear that speaks of, and the almost like the turtle pulling in. It's so much conserving, and that just, literally psychologically, when you experience fear, you develop tunnel vision, and that's, a brilliant biological method to help you find your escape and focus on just getting out. And literally, your other options are less visible. And so I just feel like we're so close, and maybe 4 years from now, when it seems like every year these elections just escalate in polarization, in fear, and but I feel like the combination of the uncertainty of coronavirus, the tremendous fear it speaks of to have $750 billion extra dollars squirreled away. Those don't sound like the kind of people or frankly corporations who are going to try something new. The majority of them. I think there will be a small percent, and that 4 years or 8 years from now, when we're used to this level of fear and craziness, it's more likely to be a different financial behavior, no matter what.
I agree with what you're saying, right? Like, I think you're spot on that we will see human behavior changes very slowly. So, regardless of whether it's 150 million or 750 million, human behavior will act accordingly. The difference here is that we have never before in history had interest rates this low, negative interest rates, and a Federal Reserve chairman that's declared war on cash, a president that's declared war on cash, a Senate, Congress, everybody. There's nobody that wants you to save your money. There's literally not a single person in the entirety of humanity today who is in a position of power. There is not a single human being who wants you to save your cash. And in fact, they are doing everything within their power to force you to not save your cash. If you save your cash, they will take it from you. That is a fact. That is not an observation that's debatable.
Take it from you.
They're going to take it from you in the form of inflation, in the form of taxes, in the form of property taxes, in the form of banking fees, in the form of negative interest rates, in all sorts of forms. They're going to, let's say, they're not going to take your money, they're going to take your purchasing power. Yep. They're going to take some of your money too.
They do that to everyone, taking 40-something % of their income every year, right?
So, yeah, but that's different. That's taking new capital. That's taking a tax on new capital. We're talking about taking a tax on existing capital that you thought you were saving, but actually you're inadvertently spending.
Yeah.
So I think that paradigm shift is going to force very quickly. This is not things which are apparent to the majority of people yet, but very, very, very soon, when the distraction of this election is over, it is going to become wildly apparent, and it's going to punch people in the face that their money is being squandered away. That when the government says we're going to introduce universal basic income, when the government says we're going to just support everybody, we're going to start giving, you need money, we got you. You need healthcare, we got you. When they start giving away the money, you need to stop and scratch yourself and go, wait a minute, but where does that come from?
Comes from you, of course.
So
I find it interesting with all this stimulus that the government and people have forgotten a little word called capitalism and inflation, which is going to occur, right?
Capitalism does not exist anymore. It doesn't.
Like, why are people disappointed that the stimulus packages have stopped for now? A company that shouldn't stay open anymore should close. The people that work for that company should be put into unemployment, which the unemployment insurance, which has been paid, so they can go and find a new job at a company that needs you. Mm-hmm. And then let that company fold. The one that made me scratch my head was United. When they laid off like 10,000 people, they said publicly, we would love
to— We're not going to lay anybody off.
They said, we would have loved to keep these people longer, but the stimulus that we were given didn't cover, and that there's not a new stimulus coming out. Well, so are you going to let 10,000 people just sit around and look at each other at all the airports across the world, and you're going to just keep paying? Let them go. Maybe JetBlue needs you. Maybe it's time to find a new career. Maybe just do something else. But let capitalism take its course. And it's like, it's really going to be an interesting thing. And I think we've been blessed, and I've been blessed as a person and a family and as a company, that we've, through these hard times, have, you go and tell anybody, I started a business this year. I was getting my hair cut, and the woman was like, oh, Jesus, really? And I was like, oh, great. I'm like, we just hired 2 more people. And she stopped cutting my hair. She's like, are you fucking kidding me? But everyone just assumes I'm probably going out of business, I probably looked like it because I hadn't had a haircut in 6 months. I probably looked homeless. But, I think there's a lot of fear, like Tess said. I agree. I was afraid for a long time, but I've blocked a lot of this negativity out. And I'm just focusing on the stuff that matters, and trying to make the right decisions with investing in the stock market, investing in Bitcoin, buying potentially some well-priced domains if it makes sense, and investing in the people that work for me and the company that we're trying to build as a group, right? And then I think that's the best bet you can make, is working on your business. And I was talking to somebody.
100%.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody yesterday who's very much deep into the domain industry, and they own a number of extensions. And we were talking about inflation and how it's going to help hurt us as individuals and our businesses in general if inflation spins out of control. And he made a good point. Inflation occurs when you're comparing your currency to other currencies. Now, the countries that we're comparing our currency to have done immense amounts of stimulus as well. So if everyone devalues their currency, then
people are looking at inflation wrong. We're going to get zero consumer price inflation. Zero. There will be. If you're sitting around thinking that there's consumer price inflation coming, that's not the right perspective.
You're talking about hard assets.
Like, everything's moving to software. That's super deflationary. Like, everybody in the world is going to be doing stimulus. That's super, like that basically is a net zero, right? So more or less, but we're in a super deflationary environment. Like, businesses are closing, and people aren't spending. There's $750 billion being saved up because people don't have anywhere to spend it.
Well, the spending is not.
It's kinetic energy. It's kinetic energy.
But spending is not.
Will re-enter the market.
Confidence in spending is not down right now, which is strange.
No, they just don't have a place to spend it. They can't go on vacations. They can't. It's like, sure, what are they going to do? Go out and buy, more crap for their house. You're going to buy, but like the big ticket items, nobody's spending. Like, people aren't buying new cars.
I don't even like going shopping anymore. I used to enjoy it. I can't stand it.
I hate
okay,
shopping.
I want to direct this back to domains. Both of you are brokers of generally 6 and 7 figure domains, which are large purchases for corporations. How would you adjust your sales pitch to a corporation that's giving you an objection that either times are too certain, they need to see what's coming in the next year? How would you specifically adjust a sales pitch for starting tomorrow, November 4th, through, say, the end of Q4?
I would probably urge a buyer right now to put down a good amount of capital as a down payment that makes sense for all parties, and try to make a payment plan for as long as you can. And if you can lock in that price and inflation happens, number one, you've locked in a hard asset at a good price that makes sense to your business. And then if things don't go well over the next 2 or 3 years, if you do a 2-year payoff, 3-year payoff, you can let it go. Or you really, and I know sometimes it sounds like a sales pitch, but like if it's a really good mid-6-figure name or $1 million name, there is buyers. Even if you do take a loss, you can probably recover a good amount of your down payment and what you've put into it before you default it, right?
Yep.
So,
which you can't say the same for a lot of other assets.
Other names, like some of these names that we were talking about today, like, double your money and you paid 30 grand for it. It's going to be hard to get 30 grand back. You could, in taking it to the open market. Can you get 10? Probably, right? But like a big, big time name, that is worth having to like dinner and takeout. There's still a market for that. There's always going to be buyers for it. So if you do good terms that are favorable to your business, that don't hurt it, you can build the name. So you haven't invested $1 million in it. Now it's sitting there. You have to put a manager on it. You got to put a developer on it. You got to plan your plan of attack, all that fun stuff that goes into it, all the content writing. It's a big investment. So, you got to put it all over a period of time. Even if you have 10 million sitting in the bank, you spend 1 million on domain name, why not pay it off over 4 or 5 years if the price of hard assets, which Drew and I are agreeing is potentially going to go up significantly over the next 3 to 5 years. Yeah. And if all the prices tank, this isn't like getting a mortgage on your house. The terms are very loose. It isn't resold through the Fed. Like if the domain market turns to total shit and the seller who owns this is praying that the payments are coming in, you can potentially renegotiate terms. So that is.
I just don't even think that it's a worthy argument. Like, I don't even think it's worth talking about. Like, and I know obviously I'm talking my book, but like in my mind, there's literally a zero chance that domain market goes to shit, because we are literally just at the nexus of like a bunch of major tailwinds. There is a dovetailing of like a major confluence of events, like from, the Fed just inflating its balance sheet potentially astronomically, but there's a zero debate about whether it's going to continue to inflate the balance sheet. Like,
but even
that's
if the
happening.
price of the domain
It's only a question of how much.
But even if the price of all of those things happen, and let's say you hit it on the head, but like let's say
digitalization, is there anybody in the world saying that digitalization is about to slow down? Right? No. Like all of these new markets that are developing, right? Like we didn't even think about 6 months ago. Like, you mentioned like, you started a new business in the middle of a pandemic. Like, hat tip, no question about it. But let me tell you something. There's a lot of people starting businesses in digital spaces that are better than the business they had before that got killed by COVID. And like, there's people like, we just had a dog trainer, okay? We got a new puppy. We wanted to hire a dog trainer. We couldn't find somebody locally we couldn't find a recommendation locally of somebody that actually spoke English. Somebody recommended this lady in England. She did a Zoom dog training with us, and she's like, she's like a very highly recommended dog trainer. I think she's out there, but amazing. She did a great job, but she's like a foo-foo dog trainer that like people recommend, right? And so she's like, I've got a client in Saudi Arabia now. I've got a client in the Philippines. I've got a client in South Africa. Like you're my first client in Portugal. Like her clients were within like 10 square blocks of her prior to COVID. And now her clients are on 7 continents. So
I agree. We have a teacher who's teaching my son a Lego class right now who is doing the exact same thing. Like 10 kids pay $50 for 3 classes, and she's made $500, and she's just doing the same class over and over and over again. And she's pretty good. Kids build little bridges and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Oh man, I want to do that. Send me a link. Send me a link.
All right. But yeah, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of people that have adjusted to this, right? And I think that's great. But like, you're not sitting there with their hands out saying, "Where's my basic income? Where's my stimulus?" They're doing something about it. And if I was at United, and even if the stimulus was carrying me along, sitting at the luggage whatever station with no luggage coming out for the last 4 months and just sitting there staring off into the distance, I'd at least be sitting there like with Rosetta Stone learning a language.
Very nice. Good to hear, Jeff. All right, Drew, anything Media Options has going on you want to give a holler out to?
We just keep chugging along. That's it. That's all it is.
How do you think the end of the year?
I think, I think the last 30 days has been, there's a few outliers, but it was, things people are on hold, starting to see what's going on, with the election and the outcome, and I think it's just a lot of uncertainty in the world right now, but I think, I think it's going to be unusual Q4. Typically, we do more than half of the business of the entire year in Q4. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. But we'll see. We'll see. We have some very exciting, announcements that are going to be coming in the end of Q4. I think it's going to be a great 2021. I have very little outlook on what the rest of this year is going to look like. I think it's going to go by very quickly. I really don't know what it's going to look like. I know that there's going to be a lot of change coming. But I can tell you that I'm very excited. 2021 will be I'm pretty bullish on 2021 for domain names. That I can say with a very high degree of conviction that.
So home party in 2021?
Yeah, home party in 2021.
All right, guys,
yeah,
thank you so much for joining. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Great to have you, Jeff.
All right, take care. Bye.